The Meg Show continues. Carney to Tyrell.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Meg Show. We're back for episode 3. And once again, we have another crazy week of lacrosse.
Crazy. How crazy?
Very, very crazy.
Super.
A lot of great lacrosse, a lot of great upsets, which we love early season ranking switches, which we will definitely get into today. And we're going to start off strong with a game that kind of slipped under the radar for us, one we probably weren't expecting to be as close as it was. And Meg, why don't you bring us into that?
Yeah, not at all. Number 13 ranked Princeton just barely beat unranked Delaware. Crazy score. Should not be this close. Princeton is doing very well this season, off to a great start, especially being ranked top 20, and to barely squeak by Delaware is crazy. They won 15-14. Haven Dora made history for the Tigers. She dished out 7 assists. She set a new school record with those 7. And then Princeton led the first quarter 7-1. Huge lead right out of the gates. Went into the second with only a little bit of a lead, which was 11-7. And then the Blue Hens scoring 7 of the 9 goals and ended up being 15-14. Scored was tied in 10 seconds left. Jamie McDonald was able to score the game-winning goal for Princeton to help them secure that win. But definitely a very, very close game. It's not what Princeton wants to see. And, I mean, good for Delaware. They can hang. But, yeah, it was a crazy game.
No, actually, shout out Delaware. That's a good Princeton team, giving them a run for their money. And then shout out to Haven, 7 assists. We love an assist queen. Making school history with that. Fantastic. The next game, we have an upset. Sound the alarm. We have number 22 Navy upsetting number 10 UVA 14-12. This game, I also was one that kind of slipped under our radar a little bit, but we got to kind of watch out for Navy here. This isn't the first time that they're kind of showing up here. They have standout player Emily Messinese. She had 3 goals and 3 assists, and then they also are supported by Emma Kennedy having 5 goals. So maybe supporting isn't even the right word, but these 2 standout players are absolute weapons on this Navy offense, providing a lot game in and game out. And throughout this game, though, it wasn't that Navy kind of took the lead and ran with it here. The Cavaliers led by as many as 4 goals in the game. They held a 12-9 edge with about 3 minutes remaining in that third quarter. But then Navy goes on to score 5 unanswered goals, putting them up 14-12, securing that win at UVA. So UVA on their home field, Navy comes in, puts on a show, ends up with the upset. So another early season upset we like to see, and definitely I would say gotta watch out for this Navy team. They're on the up and up right now. They are on the up and up.
Them and Army are like such a gritty team. I think just like what you commit to going to that program, you're just a different breed. Like they are different and they are strong, gritty, fast. And I remember when we would play them, it was always a dogfight. So good for Navy for pulling out that huge upset. Another upset that we have, Duke beat Notre Dame. Duke was ranked 19 last week. Notre Dame was at 17. Duke ended up winning 11-9. The game was played at Duke, which was also one of Meg and I's 5 places to play, one of our favorite places. We ranked that as number 5. It's a great stadium, beautiful grass field. Not many teams have grass field, but they do. And it's just always in amazing condition. So an awesome atmosphere there for a top 25 matchup. But yeah, Duke did get the upset. They both were 0-1 in the ACC going into the game, so they were looking to get one under their belt. And looking at the breakout of points throughout the quarters, or goals throughout the quarters, pretty even all the way across all 4 quarters. No one really pulled ahead at any point. It was 3-2, 3-2, 2-4, 3-1. Duke won 3 out of the 4 quarters, which helped them solidify their win. Duke also had seven different goal scorers, which is awesome. We love having multiple threats out on the field. Makes it so hard for defense and for the opponent. Really shows their depth and wide-ranging ability to finish. A few, Bella Goodwin, Maddie Shearer, Callie Hem, and Maddie McDonald each tallied 2 goals on the day. Carly Bernstein, Ava Biancardi, and Sadie Stafford also put up a goal. And then Notre Dame had a few goal scorers as well. Kristen Shanahan with a hat trick, and then a few others put up 2. There's a total of 8 yellow cards in the game, with 4 of them happening in the fourth quarter, which is sus. But the game did, if you were watching, it did begin to get out of control. It was definitely going back and forth. Both teams needed that win and wanted that win very badly. But I think 4 of those yellow cards that happened in the fourth quarter is kind of crazy.
I would agree.
Definitely a lot of emotion there when they're playing. Notre Dame took 28 shots compared to Duke's 24, showcasing Duke's ability to sort of finish on their opportunities and be more efficient. They had a nice shooting day. 11 out of 24 shots is pretty good. And then Notre Dame on the draw won 14 compared to Duke's 10, which sort of kept them in the game. But seems like so far this season, if you are winning the draw control, you're losing the game. So we'll see how that plays out.
Which doesn't always happen like that, though. So we can't really rely on that. But this Duke team, they're dangerous, they're aggressive, they're fast. And they're on, I don't even want to say it because I'm going to jinx it, so I'm not going to say it. But they're playing very, very well right now, and definitely a team to watch. If you have them coming up on your schedule, don't just overlook this Blue Devil team. They're pretty good.
Yeah.
The next game that we were looking at, this one I kind of knew was going to be a good game going into it. They're pretty evenly ranked. We've got Hopkins versus Stony Brook. This game was played at Stony Brook. It was Stony Brook's home opener of the season. And unfortunately, it didn't go the way that Stony Brook wanted. Hopkins just squeaks by Stony Brook 14-13, which throughout this game and kind of just looking at how it went with different like stats on the field, you would look at this game and you would think that Stony Brook should have won it. If you turned off the game at the end of the third quarter, you would think that Stony Brook was going to win. Hopkins said, absolutely not. And then their offense said, watch this. Hopkins put up 6 goals compared to Stony Brook's 0 goals in the fourth quarter. Now, both of these teams, they're very evenly ranked, kind of evenly matched. Stony Brook went up. They had the lead 1-2-3. They won 3 out of the 4 quarters, which is a little different from the previous games we talked about. However, that fourth quarter being held to 0 goals, which props to Hopkins' defense and goalie for that. That's fantastic. You got to put up the points there. And good for Hopkins for capitalizing on this. 6 goals in the fourth quarter. That's a lot. That's a lot. And if we kind of look at it a little more in depth, this was Stony Brook's first ranked opponent of the season compared to Hopkins, who has already played these ranked opponents. They've had these great games. They've had these close games, which can definitely affect kind of the mentality going into games, which I would also remember like back when we were playing in college. You know, your first ranked opponent is huge. It kind of sets the tone for you, helps you build a little bit of a mentality if you're facing adversity in games, where I think kind of jumping into this with Stony Brook and Hopkins being so evenly matched like that, Hopkins had a little bit of a mental edge, I would say, which you can kind of see in that fourth quarter push for them. Yeah, but going back to it, Stony Brook won 3 of those quarters, but that fourth quarter really secured it for Hopkins. And then also for Hopkins, we've got some very familiar names that if you are watching lacrosse, you recognize them. We got Ashley Mackin once again leading this Hopkins offense, scoring another beautiful goal, nice little BTB to tie the game. And then another familiar name for Hopkins is Ava Angelo. She had 3 goals and actually scored that game-winning goal for them to put them over the edge. Congratulations to her. Another name that we haven't spoken about on Hopkins is Lacey Downey. She is a fantastic player. She has very good IQ. She is a Boston College transfer, and she is showing all of her skill on this Hopkins offense. She's definitely a player you can watch from, learn from. As she moves in this offense, she had a beautiful 2-man goal. If you saw her highlight, kind of just on social media, really knows how to work a 2-man game. Where compared to kind of Stony Brook's offense, they're only bringing back about 15% of their scoring power from last season. They graduated a lot of seniors. They kind of got a lot of youth, a lot of people stepping into or onto the college field for the first time in their careers. So to kind of come up against more of a veteran offense versus one that's still learning, getting into the groove of it, there's going to be a little bit of a difference there. But good for Hopkins. They won the draw control battle, so they won the game there. But on the opposite of that, they did have more turnovers than Stony Brook. But at the end of the day, putting up those 6 goals was kind of the end of it for them. So Hopkins grabs the win at Stony Brook.
Yeah, that was a great game. Just back and forth. 2 things I want to point out. Crazy, or like just talk about crazy, the fourth quarter. Hopkins scoring 6 and Stony Brook not being able to score any. Awesome job to Hopkins defense. Stony Brook, like Meg said, you got to put up points. So 6-0 in the fourth quarter is insane. And then another note that Meg mentioned was this was Stony Brook's first ranked opponent of the season. That's sort of typical for Stony Brook, not in a bad way, but at the end of the season and with rankings, your strength of schedule plays such an important factor for rankings. And if you're going to get the higher seed or the lower seed, and then that also affects hosting playoffs. But that's something that Stony Brook typically, their schedule doesn't always have that many top matchups. Their conference isn't that hard to begin with. So granted, they have to play those games in their conference and you only get so many out of conference games. But I feel like they need to get more of those ranked matchups out of conference to help them. I think playing Hopkins is great. They usually play Syracuse. Like we played them every year, I believe.
Yeah.
But other than that, like they only ever have a few ranked matchups. But I think that's something I wonder if they notice that towards the end of the season when it comes in strength of schedule. But just a few thoughts. Anyways, we have next on our list Michigan totally dominating UPenn, which I'm still I'm pulling for UPenn. I want them to do well. I keep hoping they're gonna win. But Michigan fully dominated them. Final score is 15-8. The game was at Michigan. That is actually one place we've never played that I would like to play at or go see. I feel like it would be really cool. Michigan's just Ann Arbor, I heard, is gorgeous. So, side note. In terms of goals throughout the quarters, like the breakout, Penn only had 1 goal in the first quarter, 1 goal in the second quarter, when Michigan had 3, then 5. So tough start out of the gates for Penn. They couldn't find the back of the net. And then throughout the second half, it was 3-3 for Penn and then 3-4 for Michigan. So if they could have come out with a stronger start, that game could have been a lot closer, maybe would have gone a different way. In terms of goal scorers, Callie Norris and Julia Schwab led the scoring for 3 goals each for Michigan. Penn, Anna Brandt led the charge there. She netted her 3rd hat trick of the season. So a lot of goal scorers from Michigan. Penn, Anna Brandt is leading the charge for them. Having her 3rd hat trick so far is great. She's definitely a threat on offense. Penn just was unable to challenge the previous highest scoring defense. Michigan's defense is very good, and they're known for that. They had the ball in offense with a multitude of opportunities due to winning the draw control battle 20-6, but they just couldn't convert. That's a crazy stat for Penn to win 20 draw controls and Michigan only win 6, but the score to be that much of a difference. So Penn's got to figure out how to put the ball in the back of the net. They had 33 shots compared to Michigan's 31, so pretty even there, but 33 shots and 8 goals isn't ideal. Penn also had 24 turnovers, which is a ton. Michigan was 17. Both of those are a lot of turnovers. Ideally, you want to look to get those as close to 10 as possible for those that are not aware. But Michigan fully dominated that game. I think it's a great learning experience for Penn. It was a ranked matchup. Penn was 16 and Michigan was 7. So Penn wasn't expected to win, but definitely would have thought they put up a better fight.
Yeah, and I mean, just shout out to Michigan's defense, and they've got Erin O'Grady in net, which we've spoken of her previously. She's
So
been fantastic goalie. Yeah, but definitely 24 turnovers is not what we want to see. But I feel like this is kind of a common trend we're seeing from this past week. I felt like we're seeing a lot more turnovers than we have seen in previous weeks, whether that's the competition was just better and maybe nerves were coming into play or kind of just a little bit sloppier. But that's kind of what we've been seeing as a common trend over this past week. And if you're hearing that, because we've been saying it in a lot of these stats. which brings us over to our next game to watch, which wasn't expecting this. However, not entirely surprised. We're looking at the Clemson-Syracuse game. Clemson makes its first trip up to the Dome and coming off a big win for them too, and then coming into the Dome hot on that win. They come out with a win here. Clemson beats Syracuse. Clemson's ranked 12 at the time. Syracuse is ranked 5. Clemson wins 9-8, making their way up to the Dome. This was a huge win for the Clemson program also, like their highest ranked win in program history, which will only continue for them. They have such great classes also of recruits coming in, which is kind of a side note. They have great classes of recruits coming in, and I truly think, I guess we can quote it now in 2025, I feel by 2028, this team could be an Elite Eight Final Four competitor.
Okay. I could get behind that. I could get behind 2027.
Ooh, I like that. The stretch. But to kind of break this game down a little bit, once again, as I was just talking about the sloppiness of it, these two teams were also very, very high in turnovers, which also kind of reflected in the score a little bit. When you're having a low-scoring game and you're having high numbers of turnovers, it all kind of obviously correlates together. So we're looking at Clemson, who actually ended up having more turnovers than Syracuse. Clemson had 19 compared to Syracuse's 16. However, those are still two very, very high numbers. And if we're looking at it kind of from a box score perspective, each quarter was pretty similar. Clemson wins the first quarter and the second quarter. They lose the third and then ends up tying. The quarters were the same, 3 goals each in that fourth. So it kind of came down to that first half, going up 5-3 going into halftime. So it's kind of a slower game a little bit. We have Katie Castiello. She put up 2 goals. Lexi Edmonds had 2. Natalie Shurtleff had 2. And then if we look at Syracuse, we've got familiar names again. We've got Caroline Trinkus, who I think is fantastic. She had a hat trick. Emma Ward had 2 goals. Alexa Vogelman had 1. Gracie Britton had 1. And Sam DeVito, who's a Princeton transfer, she also had 1 as well. The turnovers, I can't really. It's so hard to get good plays, get more goals, have good lacrosse being played when the turnover numbers are so high, because it's a lot of running. I'm sure they put a lot of miles on during this game, but kind of if you look at it in another light, the Dome usually brings in a good crowd, and when you bring in a great ACC team, an ACC matchup, you got a good crowd. So on a positive note, this game was played in front of a crowd of 2,899 fans. Shout out.
Couldn't just get 2,900. Like, they couldn't get one more person.
Whoever was the one person that didn't show up. But this is so far the highest attendance in Division I lacrosse fans this season. It also ranks 3rd in program history for the single highest game attendance, which is fantastic. You love to bring people into the Dome to watch good lacrosse, to introduce people to maybe if they haven't seen Clemson play before, you kind of see what their style's like. And then you can also get to watch some of your favorite girls on Cuse as well. But yeah, congratulations, Clemson. They are on a hot streak right now. Watch out for Clemson. Yeah. Kind of putting them and Duke in that same bracket. Maybe even throw Navy in there. But these teams, they're growing. They're getting better with each game. And then for Syracuse, we're going to need to see a turnaround here. And I'm sure that team is more than capable of pulling that together.
Yeah. Watching that game, I was sort of off and on watching it just because what I was doing. But at the end, like, watching Clemson's zone defense, I feel like it just exposes the young talent on Syracuse offense. You obviously have Sam DeVito out there, who's a little bit older. You have Emma Ward out there, who's a vet. But, like, Caroline Trinkus, Alexa Vogelman, I mean, Gracie Britton's a little bit older as well, but not as much playing experience. It really exposes, like, I don't know how to explain it, but, like, beating a zone takes such a certain mindset and IQ on how to beat it. Like, it can be so simple, but it can be so hard for people to grasp. And I feel like that just comes with more playing experience. And also, like, not every team plays a zone. So, like, when in practice, you don't always focus on that. It's a lot of 1v1s, man-to-man. So So it was definitely interesting watching those girls play against a zone defense. And you can see Emma Ward trying to quarterback the offense and just help them and teach them as the game's going. But you only have so much time. And then the draw control is just, it's hurting Syracuse right now. We just got to figure out who is going to win and how they're going to win. But they rotated through a few different girls, and we just couldn't seem to win that stat. But very interesting game to watch. Great win for Clemson. They're a great program. They're on the rise. But unfortunate for Syracuse.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah, so that's our weekend recap.
For season 2, the Megs are sponsored by Sideline Bags.
Let me tell you, this bag will transform your life, whether you're an athlete, retired athlete, not an athlete, whatever it is. I use it whenever I travel, no matter what. It's amazing. It holds everything from earrings, necklaces, hair ties, deodorant, hairbrush, even your phone, mouth guard, all in one place inside your bag.
You'll never have to worry about losing something ever again. Hopefully. Use code MEG20 at checkout to get your Sideline bag today.
We'll sort of dive into the rankings now. We've got some shifting going on with just the different wins and losses and upsets that we had this weekend, especially. There's a ton. But Meg, what are your thoughts?
I think they're doing it right now. I got no complaints here. I really understand kind of why they're putting people where they're putting them a little bit. I like to see Clemson kind of hopping into this top 10 here compared to the previous week. I'm sad to see my UVA girls kind of drop a little bit in the rankings there. But still pulling for them. I like to see Michigan in the top 5 spot. And, I think BC, UNC, Northwestern, and Yale, I think that top 3, top 4, it all really kind of makes sense. I'm curious to see, which we'll talk about for upcoming games, but JMU, they are kind of a little bit of a mystery team for me this year. I think we're seeing some familiar names come in, but as returners, but we're also seeing some new names kind of pop up too. So seeing them in that top 10, I kind of like. But they're a little bit of a mystery team for me.
Yeah, looking at the rankings. Oh gosh, I don't know. Let's see. I don't think Stony Brook should be that high. Going back to strength of schedule. I think Duke could be higher. Maryland, I think Syracuse could probably be even lower. I'm interested about Stanford at 6. I'm curious. They play Syracuse coming up, I believe, this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
That will be a great matchup just to see where people land in terms of the ranking. I don't think Loyola should be that high. I don't know. The whole 10 through 15, 10 through 17, I'm about. I think Duke could be higher. I think Hopkins could maybe be a little bit higher. Maryland could be a little bit lower. Syracuse could maybe be a little bit lower, honestly. I don't know. I guess we'll see as the season goes on. But I think 1 through 5 are pretty consistent with BC, UNC, Northwestern, Yale, and Michigan.
Yeah, I don't really see the top 5, honestly, switching up unless one of them plays each other and there's some, someone wins, someone loses there. And also depending on how Stanford kind of turns out. Stanford now in the ACC, popping up to the top 6. Curious to see if maybe they can jump into that top 5. But yeah,
Stanford being in the ACC is so great for their strength of schedule.
Oh, it's fantastic. Fantastic. And they're well coached out there too. But another team that just popped into my head of USF, Southern Florida.
Yeah.
They're also having a great opening, a great welcome into the NCAA for Division I at least. I know they're not in the top 10, or in the top 20. However, I do like kind of what they're doing down there, what they're growing. The team seems to have a good culture. Obviously, I'm not on the team, but just from kind of seeing the girls on it, kind of watching some of their clips, they seem to really be coming together right now. So just wanted to give a little shout out to USF.
Yeah, I love seeing the rankings come out. Can't wait to like compare them at the end of
Guys, the rankings coming out is like the best part of the week, minus the
Yeah.
games. Like when I see the rankings come out, I get excited. We should really
Same.
put together our own, to be honest with you. I know we always complain too. We're like, there's too many rankings.
Last year, I think, never had a good thing to say about the committee
No.
that ranked the teams, and now this year we're like, okay.
No, last year we had a lot of
Negative.
differences, I guess, with
Yeah.
the rankings for each platform too. It
Mhm.
wasn't like it was just one or the other. We were committed. We really dug into it.
Mhm.
But no, this year, so far so good. And I'm just loving it. Loving seeing all these names pop into the top 10, into the top 20. Just means the game's growing. People are evolving, really diving in with their IQ. So it makes me excited.
Yeah, I love seeing Stanford in there and also being the ACC. So they'll play
Yeah.
some of the better, bigger schools. I'm curious to see how they do.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And I love seeing Ohio State too jump in here. I've been saying this. That school itself, it's so nice. Also, I heard that Denver is redoing their lacrosse facility.
Really?
That's what I heard. Rumor on the street. But backtracking, Ohio State, it's a great school. It's a great school. It has a good environment. I want to see this team do well. I really, really do. So I'm also pulling for them. In the Big Ten.
Sweet. With that being said, we've got another amazing slate of games this weekend.
Just another Saturday in front of my TV.
To get us started, Friday, we have Syracuse versus Stanford. Can't wait. That's going to be great. My dad will be in town. We'll for sure be tuning in to watch that at 5 p.m.
Lock in. Get out of work early. I didn't say that, though.
Saturday, we've got Notre Dame versus Boston College. We've got Clemson versus Duke. That'll be, I think Clemson will win, but that'll be a good game. Would love to see Duke upset them. Florida versus Loyola. That'll be a great game. Princeton versus Harvard. We got a little Ivy League matchup. JMU versus Maryland. That will be a great matchup. And then UNC versus UVA.
Yeah, so on Saturday between 11 a.m. and 4:30 p.m., you've got some stuff to watch.
Your day is planned.
Yeah, and I'm excited to see so I know we just talked about the attendance for Syracuse, but I think that Friday night game, 5 p.m., I think they could draw a really, really good crowd. So, and also the Syracuse-Stanford game is Eastern time.
Yeah.
So don't worry about having to convert. We always do it in Eastern. But Saturday, the lineups, we got a couple 12 p.m. games, so you might have to pick and choose there. But you can just rotate through them. Pop through, see different players play, different teams play, see how their styles are. I'm really, really excited for this Princeton-Harvard matchup. I think Harvard's got a really good thing going for them right now. And Princeton coming off of this overtime win. I know it's probably not what they wanted, but the overtime win, that kind of feeling of like a relief, excited, like that win. Overtime wins always feel good. Like obviously you don't really want to be in them because that's a little bit more stressful than normal. But overtime wins, when you get them, it's just like a whoof, like feels good.
We dug in and we came out on top. Like we can do it.
Yep. So I'm excited to see how that game goes. Clemson Duke, I'm pumped for. That this might Clemson Duke or JMU Maryland might be my game of the weekend.
Mine was either JMU Maryland or Florida versus Loyola. And Syracuse Stanford, but
yeah, no, I think either Clemson Duke or JMU Maryland's gonna be a game of the weekend to definitely tune into. Clemson and Duke, two teams that are playing really well right now. They've got a lot of confidence, between their coaching staff and their players. So that'll be a great one to tune into. And then JMU Maryland, I kind of like when they match up. It's always a good one. And they've got some history, I think, there between, correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't JMU end Maryland's season last year?
I think
at JMU. So. That was either last year or 2 years ago. I can't remember, but definitely some rivalry there. And just really, really good lacrosse. I couldn't be more happy to tune in.
Syracuse needs that win against Stanford.
Syracuse does need this win against Stanford. Back when Syracuse first started, or for us at least, when we first played Stanford, That was our
The only time we've played Stanford.
ever,
Pretty sure.
like in program history.
I think so.
Well, came out with a win then. Came out great. They're our first game of the season, our senior year.
Yeah, that's when Jay and I came back from our ACLs.
Oh my God.
And it was so random that we were playing Stanford because like we don't play them.
We had never played them. They're a good team though. Both like this year. It'll be a very good game. Very good game to tune into.
Where is that game? I feel like it's probably at Syracuse.
Yeah, I like just talked about how it's on Eastern time.
Oh. Yeah. But does that mean it's at Syracuse?
I mean, it could be a neutral location,
yeah.
but it's
No,
not.
no.
It's at the Dome.
I'm saying like it could be listed as Eastern time, like depending on where you're looking at. Like IL lists their games for me at least in Central Time Zone.
No, mine's in Eastern, but then it's Eastern though.
Yes, that is Eastern time, but that could never mind.
Okay, it's Eastern time. It's in the Dome. Tune in.
I'm trying to look. It is at the JMA Wireless Dome.
I'm so glad that you pulled that together.
Sorry.
It's fine. Mondays, am I right? But a great slate of games to watch this weekend, starting Friday, through the rest of the weekend. And thanks for tuning in, guys. Another great week of games. Maybe we'll see some upsets. Maybe we'll see some teams kind of solidify themselves a little bit in this early part of the season. And yeah, we can't wait to tune in and get back to you guys next week so we can talk about it again, which is so great.
For sure. Another weekend of great lacrosse.
Yeah. And then also, don't forget to ask us questions.
Yeah.
Don't forget to ask us questions.
Literally ask anything.
We love to talk, obviously. But yeah, feel free to submit any questions, any opinions, and we can kind of bring them up and kind of talk through those on here. But until next week, guys, watch lacrosse, tune in, and we will see you for episode 4.